Over 3,000 years ago, the Egyptian Empire commanded total dominance over the known world. When a massive population of Israelite slaves broke out, their initial escape route pushed them east, out of the fertile Nile Delta, and into the harsh terrain of the Sinai Peninsula. But this path quickly tightened. High, impassable mountain ridges flanked their position, forcing the long column of refugees down a narrowing corridor. At the end of that funnel was a solid wall of deep, uncrossable water. On the ground, the reality of their situation was absolute. They were marching through a dry, desolate valley, hemmed in by steep rock formations. The shore ahead offered zero infrastructure, no ships waiting in the harbor, no bridges to the other side. Mathematically, this is an unsolvable equation. A massive civilian population had marched themselves into an airtight physical box, trapped by the landscape. And then the rear guard heard the approach of the apex predator of the ancient world. Pharaoh's military was mobilized and hunting them down. Leading the charge was a specialized elite division of horse-drawn chariots. These were the high-speed pursuit vehicles of their time, designed to close gaps rapidly and run down targets with brutal efficiency. Marching right behind those chariots came the heavy infantry, thousands of disciplined, armored soldiers carrying long spears and thick shields. They formed an unbreakable, rolling wall of weaponry that choked off the only exit back out of the valley. For the cornered Israelites, the terror was overwhelmingly physical. The rhythmic thunder of thousands of hooves and boots shook the valley floor, kicking up a thick, choking dust storm that blotted out the horizon. Behind them, a highly advanced military machine operating at peak velocity. In front of them, an impassable body of ocean. The probability of survival had dropped to zero. Trapped between the deep water and the approaching blades, the tension reached a breaking point. And then, a single man stepped to the water's edge and raised his hand. What happened next suspended the known laws of nature. The sea didn't slowly recede. The water itself structuralized, tearing apart straight down the middle. In defiance of fluid dynamics, the ocean split in half, exposing the bare seabed. The water stood apart, leaving a wide, firm corridor of dry seabed across the Gulf. Thousands of people stepped off the shoreline and walked straight through the ocean. On both sides, they were flanked by towering, vibrating walls of suspended water, millions of tons of liquid defying gravity. The geographic trap was dismantled as the water walls held firm, creating an escape path where physics said none should exist. But the pursuit didn't stop. Driven by massive momentum and military arrogance, the Egyptian forces charged directly onto the exposed seabed right after them. For a few agonizing minutes, the hunters and the hunted occupied the same unnatural space, sprinting through a canyon made entirely of suspended ocean. The Israelites scrambled up the opposite bank, and the exact second the last person crossed the threshold, the unnatural suspension holding the water apart simply turned off. Gravity violently reasserted itself. Millions of tons of ocean collapsed inward from both sides simultaneously, slamming together with the force of an explosive impact. The entire Egyptian military machine, the elite chariots, the heavy infantry, all their armor and weapons, was swallowed in seconds. The exact geographic barrier that had guaranteed the Israelites' death just moments earlier was the exact instrument that eradicated their oppressors. Following the chaotic roar of the crushing sea, an immense, echoing silence fell over the coastline. The white water settled. The surface was still and unbroken, gently lapping against the shore as if nothing had occurred here. Standing on the far bank, the surviving refugees experienced intense psychological whiplash. They plummeted from paralyzing terror to staggering, total liberation in less than an hour. Every physical trace of the empire that had enslaved them was gone. Yet the historical impact on those who witnessed it became a permanent feature of human culture. When human beings confront an event that breaks the laws of physics, how do we begin to categorize it? Our modern, analytical instinct demands a physical, logical explanation. We try to map it onto extreme wind anomalies, or we assume it must be a historical exaggeration of a minor title shift. Yet those models fail to account for the core of the narrative, a localized, instantaneous, and purposeful suspension of natural law that saved one group and destroyed another. Where scientific constraint and physical logic dismiss this crossing as an impossible myth, faith simply calls it a miracle. It remains the definitive triumph of salvation over reality.